Coachella 2010, or 2012, excuse me. In a research study conducted by Trautman, participants from two samples, one, a sample of individuals who believed working for justice must be a focus of the peace movement. The sample was designated Peace with Justice. And the other sample comprised of individuals who believed peace itself, those folks were designated primarily peace, should be the primary purpose of the peace movement. Over 3/4 of the participants of both samples said that the peace movement should address social inequalities, while less than half believed that social inequalities were actually being addressed. So, I argue that if 3/4 of individuals in this particular study believe that justice is key, perhaps we can extrapolate some of that statistics out to the general population, then it's not a stretch to think that some of these same folks could be animal rights advocates, or can be persuaded to include animal rights in the struggle for justice, thus peace. I should add, in the previous slide, Melanie Joy, author of We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows, says we need to restore a connection to animals of all kinds, not just for their sake. This isn't just about animal rights, it's about human responsibility. I would add that it's also about an ethic of care and responsibility, and about an inherent and authentic respect for the community of life, through taking responsibility for protecting our shared planet and all its inhabitants from harm. Okay. In the interest of time, I'll skip ahead a bit. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." I would apply Dr. King's sentiment to animal rights as well. It's interesting, Patrice Jones of Eastern Shore Sanctuary and Education Center came up with a list among the top reasons she noted of why she is a peace activist as well as an animal rights activist. The list was detailed and covered why I believe one should be both an activist for peace and an activist for animal rights, since we're both working toward the same end, that is the eradication of injustice and the promotion of equality. On the list included, again, the reason Jones is both a peace and animal rights activist. War and animal exploitation are two expressions of the same orientation of domination and oppression. Military tests, practices of vivisection occur at a massive scale, testing conventional, chemical, biological, and nuclear, and so on. Military attacks on urban and rural spaces terrify, kill, injure, displace, and bereave companion and farm animals, and so on. Much of these concerns have to do with environmental ecological degradation. And Jones, in the same piece, also suggests ways in which animal liberation activists can work confidently and comfortably within the peace movement. Looks like some of those, looks like that got cut off here, but I'll go through a couple very quickly. Jones suggests that animal rights activists within the peace movement can mention non-human animals when discussing the innocents who will be hurt in the course of warfare, that they shouldn't forget to include humans when discussing the innocents who will be hurt in the course of warfare, as well as non-human animals. Harold Brown, founder of FarmKind, said that animal rights, to him, is quite simply respecting animals as the sentient beings they are. This means that they are on this earth for their own reasons, not for ours. that they have their own self-interests, just as humans do, and in so much as they do, they should be respected for that and left alone. Brown also writes, you may wonder what peace has to do with being an advocate of sustainable agriculture, environmental and social justice, and animal rights. Brown submits that it has everything to do with all of these and every other aspect of our lives in the world. The lack of peace manifests itself in violence and a disregard for the sanctity and dignity for another. The other could be a person or nature or a non-human sentient being. Peace is living with a mutual respect and understanding for non-human beings, nature, people, and life. It is an intimate recognition of the sacredness of each interdependent relationship. When we come to this understanding, we then know peace. When we come to know peace and practice it with each other, with the earth, we can recognize through our mutual relationships the sovereignty of non-human animals as well. And justice will spring forth, and we will have the world that we yearn for. Here's a stranger to us. Anthony Nocella discusses the connections between environmentalism and the environmental movement and animal rights and the animal advocacy movement in a piece written in 2012 and published with the Journal of Critical Animal Studies. Nocella tells of the objection of many respected environmental academics and activists to seeing animal advocacy as playing a critical role in environmental advocacy. Nocella states, those in academia and activism who strongly argue against animal rights having any relation or interconnection to environmentalism cause a great roadblock to the objectives of both movements. Many, however, have happily circumvented the block by understanding and embracing the intersection and interdependence of the two. Okay, and in the interest of time, I'm simply agreeing with this piece and extending it beyond the environmental movement to the peace movement as well. That is, there's commonalities, and there's also many differences among animal rights activists and peace activists. However, they both seek the same ends, and that is justice. And that's a great launching point for the protection of non-human animals. Okay. Bruce Friedrich, Senior Director for Strategic Initiatives at Farm Sanctuary, predicts that animal liberation is the social justice movement, for the next millennium, abolition for the 21st century. And in conclusion, I wanted to say that it's my hope that this information shared in this talk has shed light on why I believe animal rights must be a fundamental focus of academics and activists in the peace movement. Formal and informal peace education can play an important role in educating toward this end. A nonviolent social movement toward a culture of peace, positive peace, in addition to advocating for social and economic equality, human rights, ecological integrity, and other forms of justice, must also champion animal rights in order to mitigate and perhaps altogether eradicate structural violence. Only when animal rights are recognized and respected for their inherent worth, inalienability, and universality will truly hope to one day reach a state of positive peace, one in which human and non-human animals can coexist peaceably. And there's an excellent article, again in the interest of time, I'll leave you with the author's name, Paul Sikorsky. He's a social justice educator who writes in this particular piece about how he came to be an animal rights activist and advocate on behalf of animal rights within his field, which is social justice and education in general.